Nerd Morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy, and today on the Nerd Morning Show, I have my brother John here, and we are excited to talk about the new release of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity that they announced today.
This is super exciting. As Zelda fans, we've been waiting for Breath of the Wild 2 news, and what Nintendo has done is basically said, while we're developing Breath of the Wild 2, we've also had this project on the side, which gives you an insight onto the 100-year-ago calamity of Breath of the Wild, which is super exciting.
Yeah. I think that this is going to be a pretty huge game. I'm really excited of it. I have both played Hyrule Warriors as well as Breath of the Wild, and so I think it's just going to be interesting to see a marrying of those two, as we have seen for other previous Zelda games. For those who aren't really familiar with Hyrule Warriors, it's kind of what they called a warrior game setup. It's 1 versus like 1,000, and you pretty much have these swarms of antagonists who you then battle through inside of a region or a map. That's how they had it set up, with a story that progressed. And it looks like we're going to be seeing a bit of that as well inside of this sequel. But they also seem to hint on a little bit more of like an open world element. I don't know exactly how true that's going to be, but they were talking about some of the great advances that Breath of the Wild did, and that they're going to be trying to be doing more with this game than they did in the previous iteration.
Yeah. With the first Hyrule Warriors, Koei Tecmo described it as kind of a love letter to the original Zelda series, and as was kind of discussed in their announcement video, Breath of the Wild 2 kind of shattered a lot of Zelda expectations and created something very new for Zelda, and Koei Tecmo is very interested in working with Nintendo to bring us something just as unique and just as new with the Dynasty Warriors feel.
Yeah, and with that, we are definitely going to be having a warrior game, not an adventure game, and so it's going to have that same type of gameplay that Hyrule Warriors did have, rather than Breath of the Wild. Like that, it's going to be in the gameplay a different genre. And I think that's probably an important thing to note, because people who are going, oh my goodness, here is a Breath of the Wild prequel, they're not going to be getting a Breath of the Wild experience, but they're going to be getting a game that's actually inside of that world. And it's also interesting because this is a prequel and a sequel, because it's the sequel to Hyrule Warriors, but it is the prequel to Breath of the Wild. And I find that all in itself an interesting dynamic that we have set up inside of this game.
Yeah, particularly since this will be a canon game. This is the Calamity 100 years ago, the fall of the champions. This is some major battles that I think is going to be interesting. We're going to have to see maybe the destruction of Hyrule Castletown, some of the world from Breath of the Wild before it was destroyed, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
This is stuff I've wanted to see.
Yeah. And I think that they give you a little bit of tastes of those things through the memories that Link gets throughout the game of Breath of the Wild, and we're going to really be diving into that. Also, because of that and what we know, this game is setting itself up as a tragedy. That when you are going through and doing all of these fights and these battles, you will succeed in the game and lose the story. And I think that's something that's going to be really interesting, because most of the time when we're playing a game, we're going towards a victory. And here we're going to the end of civilization as they know it. That is not what we normally get out of a game. And I am just thrilled to get a different type of story outside of this game.
Yeah. I could totally see part of the adventure being playing as the Zelda champions. So let's say we take Rivali, and maybe we have some Rito warriors, and they're trying to take back Valmeadow, and have the ultimate tragedy of getting Rivali back on board and then falling to one of the Calamity aspects.
Yeah. And with that, we are actually going to be playing with a wide cast of characters. Through the traditional Zelda games, you play as Link. That's pretty much all that we've experienced, and there is some thoughts and exploration about how Breath of the Wild 2 might include a little bit more than just that, but setting that note aside, this game we are definitely going to play as multiple characters as we did in Hyrule Warriors. So Link, definitely going to be a playable character. Zelda, definitely going to be a playable character. And as kind of you mentioned, the champions are going to be playable characters. And you're going to have probably, if the original Hyrule Warriors is any guider to tell us kind of what to expect, we're going to have a story or a story mode. And with those, we are going to have all of those characters that pretty much are inserted as the necessary character to play throughout kind of the story, but may also be able to be interchangeable in other gameplay modes. And if that's the case, you're going to be able to play Link and play Zelda and play all these other type of characters in different ways and be able to kind of have a lot of fun. They didn't really mention as well a multiplayer mode, but
it's a possibility.
It's a very real possibility. Hyrule Warriors had a multiplayer mode, which I thought was super fun, and I actually like playing through the different scenes that way even more than doing it just single player.
It's very nice when it's 2 against 1,000 instead of 1 against 1,000.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And that's exactly what this game is the flooding of opponents that you're like spinning your sword kind of in a wild motions as you kind of plow through these different characters. And it's a very different gameplay experience than the like careful aiming and firing that you get a little bit inside of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, gameplay wise, don't expect a single player adventure. Definitely expect warrior style.
Yeah. With this as well, it looked like we're getting, though a different gameplay experience, a very, very similar appearance of Breath of the Wild.
It actually looks like they probably used nearly the same engine, nearly the same assets, and there's probably even some new things that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
For example, in Breath of the Wild, when we run into the Sheikah, we run into Impa. She's a very old lady.
Mm-hmm.
But this is 100 years ago. This is when she would have been young.
Yeah.
And Impa was a very important character in the original Hyrule Warrior game. So
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we'll have a bit more with some of those characters.
I am excited for that because I think like Impa was such a cool character inside of Hyrule Warriors to play. She has this gigantic sword and she just has this really strong, confident attitude, which I just really, really resonate with. I think that's just a really awesome thing. And so that will be a really, really fun thing to be able to have some of those characters that we get to maybe interact with inside of Breath of the Wild, younger and better. Also, like, we have all of this destruction, and inside of Breath of the Wild's sequel, we're going to be seeing the world kind of getting rebuilt to some degree, but now we're going to go back there, and these towns are going to be towns because they aren't destroyed yet. And that will be really interesting to see the world of Zelda as we now have it in a different light.
And it's going to be very interesting. Obviously a tragedy. These places we're visiting are going to be burnt down or destroyed as we visit them, but it still is going to be something that I'm going to very much look forward to, is seeing the little villages and the cities and etc. that we visit, and to see how you end up at the world of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. Also, like, Hyrule Warriors, one of the things that it gave was one of the coolest, I think, looks that Link ever gets, and I think that was a really, really awesome thing that they had for like cosplayers or things like that, because they were able to create some things that were from the Hyrule Warriors game that just I thought looked really, really cool.
Well, Breath of the Wild itself gave Link a variety of different outfits and gear.
Yeah.
And I could definitely see some things like that making kind of marrying each other very well.
That could be interesting. Yeah.
So I expect to see some interesting uses of gear. I expect to see some really good cosplay potential.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a blast with this thing.
Yeah. As a bit of a side note, John actually did a really cool build recently, so I wanted to feature that really quick. He made himself a Majora mask, so let's just take a quick look at this.
Okay, so I decided that I wanted to make something cool, and this is based off of a 3D print that I got and hand painted. I even made it so if I attached just a bit of elastic, I could make this a wearable mask. This is just a fun little thing. I put a lot of heart into, a lot of quality. I tried making it look like it was kind of carved out of wood and roughed up. There's a lot of heart that goes into making cosplay, and that's something that here at Nerd Morning we absolutely love.
Yeah. So anyway, just kind of really wanted to feature that because I just think it looks so cool, and it's definitely fits with the whole Zelda conversation that we're having here. So thanks for sharing with us, John. Okay, so dates. Dates are what we really need to look forward to next. So the release for this is November 20th here in 2020. So that is honestly coming up really fast. We are into September right now.
This is
so
basically 2 months away.
Yeah. This month and then the rest of the next month. So yeah, super fast. This month, though, we also get an update. So let's do a quick level of speculation on what we're going to be getting in the September 26th update. And we'll see, you know, as a month goes by, when this video is still around, if we're anywhere close.
This was basically a announcement update. I maybe could say let's see some gameplay or something being this close. So that's the first thing I would expect.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't expect any Breath of the Wild news on September 26th for Breath of the Wild 2. Mostly because I feel like that deserves its own thing.
Yeah. Though I feel like what we may be getting is some references to it. In this, they like start out with, you guys are waiting for the Breath of the Wild sequel. Well, we're not quite giving that to you yet, but... And that's pretty much how they started this conversation. And so I think that we're going to be maybe getting a reference or two that is going to give us some hints or hype that might lead to that. Yeah, again, we may not get that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do. But some gameplay footage like you're talking about, or some of these other type of elements that are going to lead and build up the hype for the next month for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I definitely see to be a possibility.
What this does mean for sure, though, as a top comment I saw in their announcement video, is we get a Breath of the Wild trilogy, which is really cool.
Totally. And being able to have this will be, I think, one of the biggest and most cohesive in-universe canon eras of the long history of Hyrule, which is going to be
this is
pretty cool.
Like the most explored Hyrule pretty much ever.
Yeah. So the really cool and exciting things, let us know in the comments what you guys are expecting or excited about with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, what you guys are expecting to see in the updates that we're going to see on September 26th. Also, what things are you hoping for and are excited for with Breath of the Wild 2? Drop those in the comments below. We'll be sure to answer and respond to each one of those. Thank you guys so much for watching and for supporting. Be sure to like and subscribe. Also, be sure to check out Nerd Morning on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.
See ya.